Coach Prime doubles down on his decision to not call 2 timeouts at the end of the Georgia Tech-Colorado game on Colorado's final drive. Take a listen.
Can improve there going forward.
Okay, let's just get the cat out of the bag. All right, first down, we throw a lateral pass, right? We lose 4 or 5 yards. Do you call timeout there? No, you're right there. You don't call timeout there. You got to go. You got to go. So you're running tempo, right? So the next play, what you gain, I guess 14 yards, whatever. Now you got 3rd and 1, right? Do you call timeout there? 3rd and 1. You get the first down. Clock stops, correct? So you get the first down, the clock stopped. Okay, he scramble play, he ran out of bounds, the clock stopped, right? Now we throw the ball out the end zone, clock stopped, right? So when was the time to call timeout?
I'll address it right now. I believe wholeheartedly. Let's just break this down right here. Right here at 107, you start with 107, throw a swing screen, lose 4 yards. I think you call a timeout right there. And Coach Prime saying, we got to get back on the ball. Let's go, let's go. I didn't see the sense of urgency from Colorado's players to get back on the ball. If anything, I saw a little pause, are we going to call a timeout? What are we doing? Yada, yada. So they keep running the play here. I would have called the timeout right there and cut the bleeding. They're bleeding 2 things after that play right there. They're bleeding 2 things. They're bleeding yardage. You lost 4 yards and you're bleeding clock. So I would cut the bleeding right there. But nonetheless, he chooses not to do that. Either way, you lose 17 seconds between the snaps there. Let's go to the second play here. It's a throw over the middle to Hakeem Williams, big receiver transfer from Florida State. And again, he says you don't want to call a timeout there. You lose how many seconds? Another 11 seconds after this play right here. So Salter snaps it on 2nd and 12, throws to Hakeem Williams. Boom. Ideally, you stop the clock right there because keep in mind you started with 107. You're down to 41 seconds left. You have 2 timeouts. Again, let's keep running it here. And again, the clock keeps bleeding here. See how many seconds you lose. It's about 10 seconds, I believe, for this 3rd down play here. I would have called a timeout there for 2 reasons. Because you can run. Call a timeout. You run another play. The clock stops with the first down. You can also clock it. You can also call it it's another timeout. So I would have called a timeout after the Hakeem Williams play. Now the Salter play, the clock keeps burning here, 29. Salter rolls around. I don't necessarily agree with Salter running to the sideline because that killed another 5 seconds, but the clock stops there. So from 107 left, 3 plays, you are down to 18 seconds left. And I just can't fathom not calling a timeout there. And I'm not a coach. I've played for a little bit, but I'm not a coach by any means. I just can't fathom going from 107 to 18 in 3 plays with no timeouts called, especially on this first play here where you lost yardage. You ran a swing screen here, and you lost yardage. So why wouldn't you cut the bleeding there? Especially, I didn't see the sense of urgency to get on the ball that they probably should have. I don't know. I think it's extremely concerning for Colorado on that standpoint. Now we'll see how they adjust to clock management and games, meaningful games later in the season. But I would hope that Colorado decides to handle this differently and use the timeouts to their disposal. I also didn't like Coach Prime's comments, kind of saying if I didn't take them, basically taking a shot at the media. He's like, I'm not going to take them to make y'all happy. I don't understand why the media's opinion is even in your head at all, why that matters. But again, extremely concerning for the Colorado front. Now let's move to week 2 here. Nonetheless, I think the timeout should have been used. Let me know in the chat whether you disagree or agree. And a little update for Colorado in week 2. Caden Salter will start a quarterback for Colorado, but we will see a little bit of Julian Lewis against Delaware. Take a listen.
Mentioned a couple weeks ago that, Caden is the starter, obviously, but you expect to see Julian at some point this season.
Yeah, he's playing. He's playing this week for sure.
What do you expect to see out of
I know when I'm going to see him.
What's that?
You just don't know when you're going to see him. I know when we're going to see him.
Interesting. Well, I know when we're going to see him. Now, when I first heard Prime mention that we're going to see Julian Lewis within the season, even with Caden Salter starting, I always assumed that if Colorado's blowing out a team, that we'd see some Julian Lewis. And in this case, Delaware, I expect Colorado to blow them out. They should blow them out, and they should win by double digits. Now, will we see Julian Lewis? Coach Prime says so. The guys at DMVR also asked Coach Prime about Julian Lewis, whether he'd be starting or not. Coach Prime kind of smirked at him and said, I told you he's playing, but I also had these comments after. Take a listen.
He's playing, all right? He's playing. You gotta understand, I love that kid, man. I really do, and I want him to be extremely successful. Sometimes you don't want to rush things. Sometimes you don't want to delay things. You want to make sure the timing is right. I don't think the time was appropriate last week. I really don't. At the way the game was flowing, the rhythm of the game. But this week, I made up my mind already before. Now he's gonna play.
I'm really interested to see what Coach Prime means by that. I really do. Because, man, I think if you played Julian Lewis last week against Georgia Tech, he would have struggled too. I think struggled worse than Salter. And I don't think Salter struggled necessarily. I just thought that in the first game jitters, new stadium, new environment on a new team and a new system. I thought that is kind of what played into that. On top of Colorado not really helping him out in play calling, my personal opinion. I thought Colorado leaning into the run game on 3rd and 2, 4th and 1 on past the 50 at the 50, leaning into your giant offensive line, using Marshall Faulk, the run game coordinator that you have, and leaning into all the pieces and seemingly effort you put into want to run the football. I'm surprised that Colorado didn't. I think it hurt Caden Salter. Now, Julian Lewis, he will debut versus Delaware. I still think it's on the capacity of Colorado blowing out Delaware and he comes in the second half at some point. I'd be shocked if he comes in early in the game and plays meaningful time. It just doesn't make sense to me. At the same time, though, I wouldn't leave it out of the question considering they are playing Delaware, lower tier talent, and then they play Wyoming the next week as well, which should be another double-digit win for the Buffaloes. Now, seeing Julian Lewis in the second half sense, I'm excited. Shoot, I think he has a great opportunity to really showcase himself, put some numbers on the board here. And I think, he's certainly a different player than Caden Salter. Matt and I discussed it here with Colorado's offensive play calling last week. It seemed more tailored to Julian Lewis than a Caden Salter. You would expect more quarterback powers, design quarterback runs, and intention on the quarterback run and the run game in general. If you have Salter at quarterback, we'll see if that changes in week 2 for Delaware. But I can't wait to see Julian Lewis suited up against Delaware in week 2. We'll see in what capacity, though. Let me know in the chat what your prediction is. How will we see Julian Lewis? Shout out to Roberto in the chat tuning in. I can't thank you enough for tuning in, my man. He says in fake plays. I don't know. I don't know what capacity. I don't think it would be very much of a fake play if Juju's in. I think defense would, certainly perk up and be like, why is he in? I don't think it's much of a fake if you use Julian Lewis on fake plays, but that's just me. Shout out to Passionate Dreamer. Agreed, timeout should have been used. Yeah, 100%. Shout out to Mike Bundy for tuning in as well. Appreciate the support, Bundy. Always, my man. But nonetheless, we will see Julian Lewis in some capacity next week. He will not be starting, though, but Coach Prime says he's playing. He's made his mind up. Julian Lewis is playing, and we will find out what that looks like here this weekend for the Buffaloes.